12, Commission General Regulation 432, LCD file R055-13, Jiggs Flatwake.
For the record, Chief of Fisheries, John Sjöberg, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, CGR 432 LCD file R055-13 amends the language in NAC 488.455 to add Jiggs Reservoir in Elko County to the list of waters on which a vessel must be operated at a speed that leaves a flat lake, but in no cases at a speed in excess of 5 nautical miles per hour. The rationale for this is because of both the shallow depth and the relatively small size of that reservoir. We've recognized that it's not a suitable water for jet skis and water skiing and similar activities where those boats would be operated at a higher speed, represents safety hazard. Jiggs Reservoir is currently under reconstruction to better seal the reservoir and improve that fishery, and there is an issue there with potential congestion and interference with fishing activities, and there are the waters in the Elko area that are both open to and much more suitable for both jet skis and water skiing.
Okay, any questions? Any public comment? Mr. Barnes?
For the record, Tom Barnes, Upper County Cab. We voted to support this, and also I live about 5 miles away from this, and being a member of our volunteer fire department, I don't want to be dragging people out of this little pond, so that's why we supported it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, now I'll bring it back to the commission for your comments. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 13. Commission General Regulation 433, LCP file R5513, remove fishing tackle restrictions.
Again, for the record, Chief of Fisheries, John Sjöberg, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, CGR 433, LCD file R056-13. This modifies the language in NAC 503.504 section 10B to remove Three Waters and Dorno Creek, Coleman Creek, and the North Fork of Battle Creek from waters that have a restriction to use only artificial lures with the single barbless hooks. And it returns those 3 waters to a general fishing regulation in any legal method. These particular streams are part of our larger scale and long-term lot and cutthroat trout recovery program, restoring LCT to a variety of waters around the state. These are waters receive a relatively low level of use. We've been very successful in that LCT restoration, and we feel that where we have been able to show that success, we have an obligation to open these up and allow harvest. They're not waters that would receive a great deal of pressure. We feel they certainly can sustain a regulation with just a general fishing regulation.
Okay, any questions from the commission? Any public comment? Tom?
For the record, Tom Casanova, Humboldt County. We also supported this. It's been a long time coming. When we went into this long cutthroat issue, there was a lot of concerns of the streams being shut off to fishing, and we were promised that they would come back someday, and they finally have. So we're pretty happy to see that. We don't get a lot of stream fishing. It seems like I don't know if it's the public's change, but all those creeks used to be fished quite a few angler days, and Singus, Able, you don't see any angler days on them anymore. And I don't know what's happened, but maybe getting some of these opened up with some publicity, people will get back with their kids and get out on the streams fishing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, now I'll bring it back to the commission for the comment.
record, Harry Wilkerson, Department of Wildlife. So this is Commission General Regulation 434, and it's the unit value descriptions for all our wildlife management areas of the state. And we've been actually doing this almost yearly for the last 3 years, updating a lot of some of the state routes, get number changes, some of the various county routes have different name changes, and those types of things. And our latest go around a little over a year ago, we actually made a new unit for bighorn sheep down in the Mineral Esmeralda County area. And Commissioner Wallace pointed out that we got almost all the boundaries right, but there were two side by side that we missed, changing one to match the other. So that's where we started. And while we're at it, we worked with our GIS specialists and our field biologists to see if they had any other tiny little additions to clarifications, boundaries, and those types of things. And one that will actually result in a line moving on the map is for the 112, 113 boundary in Area 11 in White Pine County. And that's where the Tippet Pass Road comes over the mountain, and when you get on the east side of the Antelope Range, it splits and goes to the road in the bottom of Spring Valley that is the boundary for 111, 112, 113. But where it splits, it's like which is the Tippet Pass Road. And historically, it was just called the Tippet Pass Road, and at one point we called it the Lower Tippet Pass Road. And that's great if you read maps and you hold them right, and the lower one is the lower one on the map. But so we just, like that one, we're just changing to say the South Tippet Pass Road. So it's just little clarifications like that, and if anybody has any questions specifically, I can try to answer the questions. If you saw anything in there that made you wonder what it was.
Questions? Commissioner Beth?
It has nothing to do with any of the units that you changed, but having hunted in unit 115, and looking at this unit description, the problem I had was is that there were no county markings on the roads as to where the county line was, and I'm curious how the department interprets. How do you enforce that? Is it based on GPS, or how do I know if I'm, in Lincoln County or White Pine County when I'm on the Atlanta Road?
Yeah, that's a challenge we have in a few unit groups around the state, where we'll have a boundary going along a dirt road or something until it hits a county sometime, the county line. We've tried to fix most of those and try to go to a main road. And in fact, our law enforcement shop brought that up 3 years ago when Cameron Wakeman was here. And we actually sent it out to the wardens and the biologists in the field in some of those places, trying to ask them that very question. There's one near Tonopah that goes up there's a boundary, a county line boundary, really close to that pole line road. And we kind of asked, why can't you move it there? Well, they didn't see any, the biologists in the field and the wardens. They feel that they mark the roads and they mark things with little unit boundary signs well enough, and they haven't identified issues of people getting in trouble doing that. But I think it's good if people have questions and problems like that to bring them up, and we should talk to our field folks about trying to get more of those little unit boundary signs out there and mark things better.
With that particular unit, it's actually included, I think, in the unit, one. So I don't think at the time, we have a landlord that just
Does anybody else have any questions? Public comment? Mr. Constant?
I just want to pass on some comments we received from the public at our meeting, which was that, some unit descriptions have latitude and longitude, others do not. Some lend themselves to that and some don't, I understand. But a lot of the public comments are, so many people now have handheld GPS. Is there a way to get more latitude, longitude information into these unit descriptions? Because then you're looking at your GPS, you have a lot more certainty. I think GPS mapping might be a little too expensive or too big of a project. But the public comment was, with people having GPS technology, that effort should be undertaken to use latitude and longitude if you can't go all the way to pure GPS mapping, and I wanted to pass that on.
And my only comment to GPS is I do a ton of GPS work, and some people use degrees, minutes, seconds, degrees, decimal degrees, UTMs. The ordinary guy with one in their hands doesn't know what he has. You can give him numbers and he plugs it in and he can be off, and I see it all the time.
I can repeat that message back to the people that sent me the comment. I'm just forwarding on what was communicated to me, and I understand, and I think unless you're near the boundary of the unit, it's really not that big of an issue when you're out in the field. It's just when you're getting to that, I think people can educate themselves in knowing where those boundaries are. But I'm passing on the comments that we received at our CAP, so.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, any commission comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 15, public comment. Any public comment? No? Okay, we'll adjourn it, or go to recess until tomorrow morning, 8:30 right here.